Hello everybody, hope you all had a great Memorial Day weekend. I know I did. I definitely kept busy with plenty of things. But, I hope you all had a great weekend as well. But I've got a lot of stuff to get through. I did see X-Men Days of Future Past. I have a review of it. That will be the second portion of this video. And it will be a very spoiler-filled review, so keep that in mind. There will be spoilers galore when I talk about that X-Men movie. So that's your warning, and you'll probably get another one at the start of the review. So if you don't want to have the movie spoiled for you, you probably shouldn't watch my review of X-Men. So, but before I get to that, there's a lot of WWE stuff to cover, namely Payback, which is this Sunday. The WWE Network, the situation with Daniel Bryan, and, loads of other things. So, let's just jump right into it. Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan just had neck surgery, and it looks like he will, no longer be the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, depending on when and how they want to get the title off of him. They keep teasing us that they're going to do it, but they haven't officially stripped him yet. And then, jumping ahead to Payback a little bit, they've said that at this pay-per-view, Stephanie's given him the ultimatum. Storyline-wise, Stephanie has given him the ultimatum that if he doesn't surrender the title, she's going to fire Brie. Which I have to say that Brie professionally might be the worst thing that's ever happened to Daniel Bryan. Personally, I hope they're a happy couple. Congratulations on them getting married. I think it's great, and I hope they have a long and happy life together, and I wish them all the happiness in the world. I don't want them to be tied at the hip storyline-wise, though, and the reason for that is not that it's a bad idea to acknowledge that Daniel Bryan's wife is also a wrestler on the roster. The problem is that Brie can't act, and it's painful to watch her try. So I'd rather not have her share screen time with Daniel Bryan. Because, the stuff they were doing with Kane was just painful. I mean painful. Just bad. Just really, really bad. And I'd rather just not have her interacting with Daniel Bryan on camera. It's just not. It's just not good. And I wish they'd stop doing that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think they have to take the title off of Bryan at some point, and I think they can make that work to their advantage. Because, like I said, the Kane storyline was terrible. So getting a break from that might have been a blessing in disguise. And, maybe it'll just give Daniel Bryan more sympathy and one more obstacle to overcome when he eventually does come back. So, obviously the wrestler's health comes first, and I do want Daniel Bryan's like, look, if you have to stay gone for 6 months or a year, do it. Do not, because you don't want to fuck around with your neck. So, I hope Daniel Bryan has a successful recovery, and when he does come back, whenever that is. And I'm on this. I operate on the side of caution. Take as long as you want. Because you don't want to fuck around with that stuff. So if you have to take a year off, go ahead and do it. Because I'd rather not risk it. And I love Daniel Bryan, and I'm a big fan of his. So I don't want him to. Excuse me. I don't want to see him get hurt or become become broken down, basically. So, whatever road to recovery he decides on, he'll do what's best for him, but I just hope that everything turns out okay. But yeah, I imagine he's going to be stripped at the title at some point, which, like I said, could actually benefit storylines. And I actually like that Payback doesn't have a world title match, because the main event itself is fine, and I'll cover that when I preview the pay-per-view. The main event of Shield versus Evolution is a big enough match that I think it could main event the pay-per-view on its own. And you don't always have to shoehorn a world title match into every single pay-per-view, especially when you have a big match like that. So I'm completely fine with it. It's just a shame that we didn't really get to enjoy Daniel Bryan's title run, because he won at WrestleMania. The night after on Raw was really cool. And then he jumped into that horrible feud with Kane. And now he's going to lose the belt because of a neck injury. It's like, God damn it. We didn't even get to enjoy it. It's just womp womp. It's just one of those things, which is unfortunate. But obviously I'll be watching the pay-per-view on the WWE Network, which I have to talk about. Thank you for those of you who pointed out to me that the Clash of Champions is indeed on the WWE Network. It's in the, what do they call it, the Vault? I think, I don't know. Whatever, it's in the archives or whatever it is. And all 35 episodes of Clash of Champions are on there. So it's like, yay! I'll probably going to be spending a lot of time watching those because I love the Clash of Champions, and those were some good shows. And if they put Saturday Night's Main Event on there, too, I'll be even happier. But, yeah, that should bring back a lot of good memories. I want to watch the one where Luger attacks Sting, and Sting had to come back and work a match with Rick Rude for the U.S. title with a bum knee and ultimately lost the title because of that. I want to watch that again because I remember that being pretty cool. But, yeah, so that's really cool. So I'm going to be watching that. And given the current financial situation that the WWE is in, where the stocks dropped heavily, and I don't pretend to be an economic genius or I don't play the stock market or anything like that. I didn't buy stock. I've never bought stocks in anything, so I don't pretend to be a genius at that. But to have that kind of a drop off is pretty substantial and pretty huge. And you know, that poor financial situation right there, combined with the fact that apparently the WWE network has not been as successful as they'd hoped. I don't count on the network existing as it is for too much longer. It'll be really interesting to see what happens after the 6-month period and those first set of subscribers are getting ready to re-up. It'll be interesting, but I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts. It's like, yeah, get all the Clash of Champions. I'll be sure to watch all of those as soon as I can. So that's really good. They need better original content, though. That Legends House thing is painful, but... and Countdown doesn't really count. Those are just glorified clip shows. But, yeah, so Clash of Champions, that's really cool. I want to start watching NXT because I hear it's really good. And I'm interested in watching the NXT TakeOver show on Thursday night. So I'm going to try and check it out and just to see what it's all about and what's going on. Because I like a lot of the talents that have come out of there. Obviously, I've been very impressed with a lot of them. So, you know, I want to check it out and see what their farm system looks like and how those shows are presented and what's going on. So, yeah, I'm going to try and check out that show, and hopefully it's good, because I haven't watched any of NXT since the big jump to the network and everything, but I hear it's great. So, here's hoping. I'm going to check it out. Excuse me. And obviously that leads me into Payback, which is the pay-per-view coming up this Sunday, and I'm going to be watching it on the network. It's great getting those things for $9. I can't stress that enough. I'm a penny-pinching moron. Or not moron, but miser. Let's say miser. Yeah, miser's a better word. I'm a bit of a cheapskate, and, you know, getting the pay-per-views for that cheap of a price is pretty awesome. So, again, I'm going to enjoy the network as long as it lasts. The Payback card, like I said, I'm not a... I don't have a problem with there not being a WWE title match. I'm completely fine with that. The rest of the card, though, feels kind of rushed and thrown together, and it's just... It feels like they just kind of threw a card together. And not all the matches have been announced yet. I've heard they might do Usos versus Wyatts for the tag titles, which they're also doing on Main Event this week, which begs the question, why are you doing it on Main Event when you should be saving it for the pay-per-view? And why, if you're going to do it at the pay-per-view, why wouldn't you announce it on Raw this week? I don't know. It's weird. But, I mean, that's a good tag title match. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, why wouldn't you announce that ahead of time? Although I do hate that the Usos are John Cena's buddies now. That kind of bugs me, because that's usually a death nail. Just ask Zack Ryder. Yeah, not a fan of that, but I think the match could be good. It's Usos versus Wyatts. How bad could it be? So I think it will, at the very least, it'll be a good solid tag match between two teams that, even though there's not much of a feud there, at least I give a shit about each team. I guess that's fine. I would be fine with either team winning, quite honestly, so it doesn't really matter. I guess the Usos will retain if this match actually happens. I'm just guessing, but we shall see. Adam Rose versus Jack Swagger is another match that they've been hyping on Raw, but with constant interactions between them, but they've never really... again, they haven't made the match official yet. I assume it's going to happen. Why would it not? Excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm coming down with something. So, anyway, Adam Rose versus Jack Swagger. I like Adam Rose's character. I think it's funny. I thought the vignettes were funny. My problem with it is that I think this is all it's going to be. I think this is all it's going to be, this one-note joke, and that's all they're ever going to do with it, and eventually people are going to get sick of it. It's like what they did with Brodus Clay. It's like what they did with Fandango. It's like Fandango, literally, the dance got over. It's like, oh, we don't have to try anymore. It's fine. The dance got over. We're good. We don't need to expand on his character or give him, like, meaningful feuds or anything. He just needs to dance. That's all we need. They did it to Simon Dean. They did it to even Too Cool. It was just like, oh, they just go out there and dance. That's all they need. And it gets old after a while, and I stop caring. And I think Adam Rose is going to kind of amount to that, which is unfortunate. Through no fault of his own. He's just going to go out there. It's going to get laughs, and then eventually people are going to get sick of it because it's just the same thing over and over again, which is a shame, because I do think the character has potential. I just doubt that they're going to do anything with it. I would think that he would win this match since he's new to the roster and everything, but where they go forward from here, we'll just have to wait and see. What else? We've got 2 title matches, an IC title match and a US title match. It's nice to have 2 mid-card matches. We got Bad News Barrett versus Rob Van Dam for the IC title. I don't care about RVD at all. He's talking about doing the same thing over and over again. This guy is literally just having the same match every week. Like, I could call his matches spot for spot almost. And last week he had a match where it was like, dude, what was up with the Rolling Thunder? It looked like he couldn't do it. I mean, he did it on Raw this week, though. I don't know. It's just... I just don't care about RVD anymore. It's like, okay, you're stale, dude. I'd rather they built up a more interesting challenger for him, but yeah, for Bad News Barrett. But it is nice that they're at least trying to put effort into the mid-card titles, and maybe it'll lead to a unification match down the road, which I would like, because I think titles mean more when there are fewer of them, because then it actually means something when you hold one, as opposed to, I think Mick Foley cut that promo in 2001 at the tail end of the Invasion angle, where there were like 87 belts that go between the WCW titles and the WWE titles. I think there were over 10 championships, easily. And I think Foley was like, look, it's getting to a point now where if you don't have a belt, there's something wrong with you. And yeah, it doesn't mean anything when there are too many belts. And I would like it if they unified the IC and the US titles. But I would have Bad News Barrett go over, because I don't see the value in giving the belt to RVD, because he's already been the IC champion like 18 times, so who cares? And Bad News Barrett is actually a fresh character, so let him, let him grow. US title, it's Sheamus versus Cesaro. Again, I don't give a shit about Sheamus. I hope Cesaro wins the belt, because I think he's the hotter hand right now, and I think he's the more interesting act, and I think he's more over. And thankfully, they cut down on him doing the big swing, which I like, because you don't want that to become stale, because that's obviously kind of his calling card right now. So it's like, okay, hold back on it. Don't do it every single week. And I don't think I've seen him do it in at least a couple weeks. So it's actually, yeah, make the big swing a big deal, I think these two could have a decent match together. I like Sheamus as a worker, not as a character, but I would hope that Cesaro would win the U.S. title, and maybe it'll lead to Bad News Barrett versus Cesaro in the unification match, where it's the battle between the two heels that everybody likes. So, because they get cheered, both of them, so... there's that. What else is on this card? We've got John Cena versus Bray Wyatt in a last man standing match in a feud that I am totally sick of. I don't care about. Just end it. I don't care. Okay, Cena wins. Fine, whatever. I don't give a shit. Just end it. Just end it. Because the feud's not making any sense right now. It's just, they're spinning their wheels. It's boring. It's stale. I don't care. Just end it. Put the kibosh on it. If Cena has to go over, fine. So be it. I don't care. I don't give a shit about this match at all. I just want the feud to be over. So, what else is on this card? Well, there's the pre-show match. They're doing Hornswoggle and El Torito, which I knew that they weren't going to let that thing die. Speaking of, constantly repeating jokes, I knew they weren't going to let this thing die right away. It just had to keep going. What is it, a hair versus mask match or whatever? I don't care. It's on the pre-show, so how much damage could it possibly do? I mean, I know the match they had last month was surprisingly fun, but that was a tables, ladders, and chairs match, and they did all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like, I have a feeling this is going to be more along the lines of bad comedy. And for those of you who watched Raw this week, where they ripped the tail off of El Torito, you know that this whole feud doesn't have a whole lot of comedic juice left in it. I mean, that tail bit was funny when Eeyore did it. It's not so good when the masked bull does it, but whatever. That's kind of a problem I want to talk about with Raw, Where Raw lately, it's in this holding pattern where I feel like I'm watching the same show every week. There's almost like a pattern to it. It's like, all right, I'm going to see Stephanie yell at Daniel Bryan. I'm going to see John Cena and Bray Wyatt cut promos on each other. I'm going to see Shield and Evolution fight. And even though the Shield and Evolution stuff has been really good, it just feels very repetitive, and I feel like I'm just seeing the same exact episode every single week. One match that I forgot. Paige versus Alicia Fox for the Divas title. Yeah, I don't really care. They're trying to give Alicia Fox something. I guess her acting batshit crazy after the match, I guess it's better than nothing. I still don't really care all that much. They've really dropped the ball with Paige, and if it were me, I would take the belt off of her and kind of just start from scratch with her, because they've really... They put the title on her too soon. They made a mistake, and they didn't do a good enough job of building her up to that point, because they didn't build her up to that point. She just showed up one night and won the title, and that's not a good way to build somebody up. And again, I like Paige, but they introduced her horribly. So I would take the title off of her and just kind of rebuild from the ground up, and hopefully try and make her work in the future. So there's that match, but I think that leaves only the main event, which is awesome, and I'm totally going to check out this pay-per-view just to see this match. The Shield versus Evolution in a no-holds-barred elimination match. I expect this to be wild, crazy, and a lot of fun. It's a nice continuation from the match that they had last month at Extreme Rules. I expect it to be a really good match, and I think the Shield is going to win. Because Evolution got the best of them on Raw this week, and usually that means that the faces are going to win at the pay-per-view, or whoever gets the upper hand on the week before the pay-per-view usually loses at the pay-per-view. That's usually how it goes, at least 80% of the time. But not only that, I hear Batista's getting ready to finish up his run. He's almost done, and because he's got to go promote Guardians of the Galaxy, which is probably a better use of his time than being on Raw, because he's horrible. And it's really weird because Batista's been in some of the best matches this year, but he's like the worst part of it. Like the main event at WrestleMania 30, or the match last month between the Shield and Evolution. He's like, yeah, those were awesome matches, but not because of him. It was because of the other talents and the drama being crafted and other outside forces at play. It had nothing to do with Batista. And he's awful. He really is just terrible. But I think the Shield's going to win this match. I don't see any reason to have Evolution go over. I think giving Evolution another run isn't going to be beneficial in the long run, and giving the Shield big wins over them, I think is going to go further to establish the Shield. They've done a great job of making the Shield look like they're on par, they're equals to Evolution. Seth Rollins looks like he belongs in there with Triple H, and Dean Ambrose looks like he belongs in there with Triple H, which is not always the thing that Triple H would do in the past. I think back to his feud, like the DX versus Legacy feud, where he made Ted and Cody look awful. Made them look like little bitches, and wouldn't sell for him, and all sorts of crap. So, but here, they've he put his working boots on, and now the Shield looks like they're on par with Evolution. Arguably better since they won the last match, and it looks like they're going to win this one too. But no matter what happens, I expect this to be a wild and crazy match, making it no holds barred. I hope that means it's tornado tag, because if it's no holds barred, there's really no reason to have tagging in and out. I mean, there's really no purpose for it. So just let them go wild and crazy. I don't care. Let them go nuts. And let them just have this wild and crazy match. I think that could be a lot of fun to watch. So I do expect the main event of this pay-per-view to be very, very strong. So, and the rest of the card, it's it's not well built, but it doesn't look overly offensive, I guess. And for $9, I'll take it. Again, the benefit of the low price, it makes their cards look so much better. But yeah, that's all I got for Payback in the WWE. Nice to do some of that catching up. And hopefully we get a good show this Sunday. I'm going to check it out. And hopefully NXT TakeOver is good. And hopefully I get to enjoy some of those old Clash of Champions as well. So I'm going to be watching a lot of WWE Network this week. So, but I'm done with the WWE talk. Let's jump into my movie review. And as promised, here is my review of X-Men Days of Future Past, which just hit theaters this Memorial Day weekend. And I should warn you right off the bat that this this review is going to be loaded with spoilers. I plan on talking about every little thing that comes into mind while talking about this movie. So, if you do not want to have the movie spoiled for you, please leave, because this is going to be loaded with spoilers. So, getting right into it, when I reviewed Godzilla last week, I talked about how I was so happy with that movie that as I was walking out of the theater, I noticed that I was fighting back tears because I was so happy with how the film turned out. And as wimpy as that makes me sound, giant monster movies are a real big deal to me, and I'm a really big fan of both Godzilla and giant monster movies in general. So that movie-going experience was just a pure delight for me, personally. I imagine if you take X-Men just as seriously, this is probably that movie for you. I think if you're a die-hard X-Men fan, and I've always loved the X-Men, but I think if you're like really, really, really a die-hard, live, breathe, and die X-Men fan, I think this is the movie you've been waiting for. I think this is, in my opinion, the best X-Men movie to date. I thought it was really good. Did a very good job and lived up, for the most part, lived up to the potential of the premise and the story that they were trying to tell. Was it a perfect film? No. I think there's plenty of stuff to nitpick, but that's really mostly what it is. It's mostly just... most of the negative things I have to say about this movie is largely just nitpicking. But overall, it was a very positive experience, and like I said, it's the best X-Men movie to date, I think. And I think more than any other X-Men movie, I think it really captures the potential of the franchise and the characters and everything else, and the powers and the uniqueness that they display. I think this movie captured that more than any other X-Men movie so far, while also telling an epic story with major stakes and with an overall kind of sense of importance to it. So yeah, I thought they hit it out of the park with this. I thought Days of Future Past was very good, and I highly recommend it. But as I said, it's not entirely perfect, and I do have stuff to nitpick. One thing that kind of disappointed me a little bit, I would have liked a little bit more time spent in the future. The way they set it up and the way it looked like it was going to go, I thought we were going to get the future and the past as two concurrent storylines. Because they set up that as Wolverine is sent back in time, he doesn't... the changes he makes in the past doesn't affect the future until he wakes up. So with that kind of a rule in place, I thought that we were going to get two concurrent storylines with the past and the future, and the movie was going to intercut between the both of them. But that didn't really happen. We opened up with the future, which was very Terminator-like, and I liked it. I thought it was very good. Then once we set up the thing where Wolverine has to go back into the past, and then the past storyline, the 1970s, kind of took over the movie. And it would only go back into the future once in a while just to remind us of what was going on. It didn't really have its own storyline. And that was a little disappointing because I like some of those future mutants. I thought Blink's powers were very cool, and I'll talk about that later. But we didn't really get to explore the characters that much. I mean, Iceman, they showed off his powers well in both, especially in that opening sequence and, again, towards the end for the climax. But they didn't really explore the characters that much in the future or evolve much of a story there. It was just kind of, let's go to the past, and the past is the main story of the movie. And the biggest disappointment that came along with that is that we didn't get a lot of Bishop. And I'm not talking about... it's not like a Godzilla thing where they held off Bishop and then gave him his big moment or anything. Bishop did almost nothing. Like, seriously, Angel in X-Men 3 had more screen time than Bishop did in this movie. And that was disappointing for me because Bishop's always been one of my favorites. Okay, my big X-Men, my favorites were always Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Bishop, Rogue, and if I'm going to do a top 5... let's say Magneto, even though he's one of the bad guys. Magneto, but those are my boos. Those are my ex-boos. We'll say that. And Bishop was always a big favorite of mine. So when I heard he was going to be in this movie, and I saw what the setup was, and I saw that they were doing Days of Future Past, which is one of the the classic X-Men stories, I thought, oh my God, yes, we get to see Bishop in a movie. Finally, I get to see motherfucking Bishop. And he didn't really do anything, and that was a little disappointing. In the movie's defense, though, and this is where it's largely a nitpick. unlike Angel from X-Men 3, who was all over the marketing for this movie, or like Rhino from the last Spider-Man movie, who was all over the marketing and had, you know, his appearance in that film ultimately ultimately amounted to a toy advertisement. Bishop wasn't really all over the advertising for this movie. Me assuming he was going to have a big role was more my imagination running wild, so I can't really accuse the film of promising something and then not delivering. That was just me wanting something. But again, I would have liked more Bishop. I'm just throwing that out there. But, so that was a little disappointing. What else did I not like? I thought the soundtrack wasn't very good. I was surprised at how lackluster and bland it was. Especially since the music they used in the initial trailers was so amazing and so remarkable. I was a little surprised at how flat the actual soundtrack was. That was a little disappointing. Especially coming off of Godzilla, where the music in that movie was just phenomenal. I was a little surprised at how flat the music was in this movie, but again, I mean, that's not a major thing. I'm more of an audio guy, and I do like it when movies have, like, spectacular music or something, and this movie didn't really have that, and that was a little bit of a letdown. Peter Dinklage as Trask. When I first heard he was cast, I was excited because Peter Dinklage is my favorite actor from Game of Thrones, and I think he's the MVP of that show. And if you watched the recent episode where he was put on trial, you'll see, like, the real acting chops that Peter Dinklage has, and when he puts passion and energy into what he's doing, he can really elevate the material that he's working with. But here, he just kind of plays it straight, and they don't really do anything with him. I was a little disappointed by that. It's I hate to keep comparing it to Godzilla, but it's like when they cast Bryan Cranston. The reason so many of us were excited about Bryan Cranston being casted because we saw him in Breaking Bad, and we thought, oh, he's going to bring that same passion and energy to a Godzilla movie. That's awesome. And he did, and granted, he wasn't on screen that much, and that's really the major flaw of that Godzilla movie, now that I think about it. It's like, yeah, you know, a lot of people say it's not enough Godzilla. I say there wasn't enough Cranston, and I thought they took him out of the movie way too soon, but Bryan Cranston was allowed to expand and, you know, stretch his acting muscles a little bit. Peter Dinklage didn't really get to do anything, and they didn't really expand the character that he was working with all that much. He was really just a MacGuffin, because he's obviously Mystique's target in the story, and he's kind of the focal point of that sends everything into motion, and the good guys are doing what they have to do because they have to get to him, and Mystique is trying to get to him because she's trying to kill him and everything, but really he's just a MacGuffin, and that's kind of disappointing because I thought they'd give Peter Dinklage a little bit more. The only scene where he really had any kind of material to work with was where he talked about how he felt the mutants were going to be the key to unifying mankind against a common threat, and I thought that was a neat little moment, but they didn't really expand on that too much. And again, he's just kind of there to advance this. He's the object that advances the story, hence MacGuffin. He doesn't really do much other than that, and that was, again, a tad disappointing. But again, that's me wanting something out of the movie based on who the actor is, and not really a fair reflection of the movie itself. What else did I not like? Oh, speaking of actors, I don't know who they got to play Richard Nixon in this movie, but he should get a Razzie, because he was terrible. I mean, well, let me take that back. He was a terrible Richard Nixon in this type of movie, which was not meant to be a comedy or a parody. At least that wasn't the overall tone of the movie. And he really looked out of place. So, like, whenever they had that Richard Nixon on screen, I was like, am I watching Futurama or The Simpsons? I mean, what the hell is that? That might be the same guy. I don't know. But it was laughable. And every time he was on screen, the audience I was with, they just laughed. It was ludicrous. And it took away from some scenes, like in the climax where he's talking to Magneto. It just came off as kind of silly rather than you know, here's the leader of, you know, the leader of the free world. It just kind of looked like a joke. And granted, I know that Richard Nixon is an easy president to make fun of, and I know that for, you know, once Teddy Roosevelt rolled around, it kind of became a prerequisite for every U.S. president to be a cartoon character. And yes, pretty much, it started with Teddy, I think, and pretty much every president since then has been a cartoon character, but to some degree. But I don't know, that just came off as really silly. Like just absurd, and I couldn't believe that was what they went with Richard Nixon. I'm all for parody, don't get me wrong, but it seemed to clash with the material and the tone of the movie, and it just came off as kind of silly. But again, I mean, he's not on screen much, and that's just a little, again, we're nitpicking. I'm nitpicking. And the story also had a few, like, little conveniences and a couple of holes in it that were a little disappointing. Well, not necessarily disappointing, but like a little, like I said, a couple things that were a little convenient, like Kitty Pryde being able to send people's consciousness back in time. And like, okay, her power is that she can walk through walls. How does that translate in being able to send people's consciousness back in time? It's like the amnesia kiss from Superman 2. Where the hell did that power come from? But again, nitpicking. Actually, it's a funny joke because a friend of mine, who I saw the movie with, we had this little joke where he was talking about Jurassic Park, and he's like, yeah, it's a really good movie, but if you look at the science of that movie, it really doesn't make any sense. And I was like, dude, frog DNA answers all questions. Shut the fuck up. And in this movie, when I was talking about Kitty Pryde, is like, where the hell did that power come from when she could send people's minds back in time? You would think Professor X would be able to do that, but Kitty Pryde, that doesn't make much sense. Where's the connection there? And he looks at me and he goes, mutant gene, shut the fuck up, answers all questions. And I'm like, okay, touche. But again, it is, okay, whatever, it moves the story along, and I guess there is something to be said for, yeah, okay, mutant gene does whatever, alright, fine. It has a different effect on everybody that has it, fine, whatever, I'll go with it. I was really disappointed that they took Quicksilver out of the movie as quickly as they did, because, and I'll get into when I get into the good stuff, I'll talk more about Quicksilver, but he had this scene where he really kicked ass and was really awesome, but then he didn't join them for the rest of the movie. He just kind of was like, alright, y'all getting on the plane, see y'all later. I'm like, why the hell are they not taking Quicksilver with them? I mean, that dude, I would take that dude on every single mission. He was that powerful during the scene where they had to break Magneto out of the Pentagon. He was so powerful and so, like, amazing in that scene. It's like, why would they not take him everywhere they go? This is a guy that moves so fast, he can literally tap bullets out of the way. So let's not take him on the mission where we have to stop somebody from getting shot. You know? I understand why they had to take him out of the movie, because if they took him along, the movie would be over, because he's just, that super speed power is just that powerful, but I wish they'd come up with a better reason for why he couldn't join them for the rest of the movie, because it just felt like, it's like, alright, I'm done, bye everybody. I'm like, they're not even going to consider taking him along? Really? Okay. Sure. I'm trying to think of some other things. Again, getting into super nitpicky territory. I like the idea of Magneto taking control of the Sentinels in the 1970s. That's a great idea, and that's classic Magneto, but the way they did it is like, alright, he takes the train tracks and he, like, uses his magnetic powers to put it into the Sentinels and give them, like, a metal frame that he can control. I'm like, alright, that makes sense. It's like him being the puppet master, but he's somehow able to activate them and activate their guns and their jetpacks and everything. I'm like, really? You could do that with train tracks? That's... okay. Again, I'm nitpicking. I really am nitpicking. And like I said, Magneto taking control of the Sentinels was really cool. So, again, a lot of the problems I just stated, it sounds like I'm shitting on the movie, but I'm really not. It's, those are largely just nitpicks. I'm just trying to illustrate that the movie's not perfect, and I'm just trying to give a fair review. But getting into the stuff I really liked, which was pretty much everything else, the story's great, because like I said, it's the first time they ever really tried to do one of the classic X-Men stories, and they really did give it this great weight and sense of that there's something like really big at stake here, like the fate of the world is at stake. And I thought they captured that well with that story, even though they didn't spend, like I said, I didn't feel like they spent enough time in the future. I did think the story that they conveyed and the way they did it was overall very good. And great, I mean, there's a part of me that would have liked to have seen Master Mold, but whatever, I'll let it slide. And I do think they did do a really good job of setting that up. And I thought the characters bounced off each other very well. It was fun to see Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart have their little moment at the end of the movie where they talk about, it's like, all that time we wasted fighting each other, and it's all come to this, and yada, 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 all of that. The past Professor X and Magneto, their interactions were great, and I loved watching them interact. So the characters are really good in this movie, too. I like that Wolverine is not the focal point, because even though I love Wolverine, every X-Men movie has basically been centered around him, and it's like, okay, we get it. He's the most popular, but you do have other characters. And here he kind of serves as, like, the new Professor X, where he has to be the voice of reason and the source of wisdom to the past characters like Professor X, who's a broken man in 1973, and that was really interesting to see, because I was kind of calling bullshit when he first was walking around. It's like, oh, Beast invented a mutant cure that can cure him of his powers and help him walk, and I'm like, oh, that's bullshit, but that's very convenient, but the way they played it, and the way, what's the actor's name? McElroy, I forget his first name, but a very good actor. He's amazing in this role. And the way he captured Charles Xavier as this broken man with the weight of the world on his shoulder, it's like he crumbled underneath the weight of the world. And I thought his story arc was very, very good and very well done. And so it's kind of helped me overlook. It's like, all right, that mutant cure thing is a little convenient, but I'll overlook it because it's so well acted and it serves the story as well as it does. So that came off really well. I love Mystique in this movie. I thought she was great. And Jennifer Lawrence, of course, is kind of America's sweetheart right now. And she was great in this. And I love what they did with Mystique, where she's not just straight up bad guy here. She's conflicted, and she's really she wants to murder Trask to avenge her kind, and not realizing that what she does is going to ultimately bring about the end of the world, because her mutant DNA is going to be used to upgrade the Sentinels to being the most adaptable mutant killing machines in the future, and it ultimately dooms the future. So I love that the whole story basically comes down to her making a choice, and there's legitimate tenseness and drama there where you don't know what she's going to do necessarily, and you do feel for her, and she is a sympathetic character, but at the same time you want her to do the right thing and not pull the trigger when she has the chance. So I thought all of that was very well done. And Mystique, I've heard rumors that Mystique might get her own movie. I would be in full-on support of that, because they really expanded on her character here and gave her a lot of material to work with, and I think she is strong enough to support her own movie. There's been talks of a Gambit movie and a Deadpool movie, which I think we would all love, but if they do a Mystique movie, I'll give it a chance, because I think it could be really good. But and she was a great character in this movie. Again, it was nice that they kind of pulled back on Wolverine a little bit and let Mystique and Charles Xavier and all of those characters kind of rule the story. Because really, it's Charles Xavier and Mystique's movie more than anybody else. It's really their movie. And they have the two most interesting story arcs, and I thought they were realized very well. And it's really... they're the two most sympathetic characters, anyway. Fassbender as Magneto is awesome. I loved him in First Class, and he just continues trucking right along in this movie. He's chilling as Magneto. And I love Ian McKellen as Magneto, don't get me wrong, but I think Fassbender beats him out. I think he's just more intimidating. And that scene where he lifts up RFK Stadium and and takes control of the Sentinels, which I already nitpicked, but that whole scene was just beautiful and made for a great climax. So I love Fassbender as Magneto. I think he's outstanding in the role, and I definitely welcome him coming back. And there's Beast was really good in this. I forget the name of the actor who plays the young Beast, but I liked him in the movie. I loved Quicksilver. Again, let me talk about Quicksilver. I'm sure the people at Marvel who are working on Avengers Age of Ultron right now, and maybe Aaron Taylor Johnson as well, they saw Quicksilver in this movie and went, oh, fuck. we gotta top that now. And I'm sure that somebody at WB and DC looked at this and said, God damn it, somebody can do the Flash better than us. Just fuck. Just fuck. I mean, that's just DC's lot. They're the punching bag these days. But Quicksilver was great. I thought he was really funny. I thought he was a really fun character to watch, and I missed him when he was gone. So I would have liked a little bit more Quicksilver in this movie. But the way they showcased his powers, that whole sequence where it looks like time is moving in slow motion. He's walking around and getting people to punch each other and moving bullets out of the way and doing all this fun stuff to knock everybody out. That was a great sequence and just really probably the highlight of the movie. It was funny and it was a great showcase for this mutant's power. And like I said, let me expand on what I said earlier. This movie probably does the best job of showcasing the mutant's power than any other X-Men movie. I talked about Magneto in RFK Stadium. I talked about Quicksilver's big scene. And for anybody wondering, no, they don't reveal that Quicksilver is Magneto's son, although they do. There's a tease for it, but they don't actually reveal it. Mystique's obviously, they've always done a great job showcasing her powers, going all the way to the first movie, but going into the future, Blink, they did a great job realizing what her powers are like and what she does. Although I'm almost certain that somebody that worked on this movie played a shitload of Portal, but her powers are really cool. And of all the future mutants, I thought they did the best job realizing her powers, even though the character ultimately has nothing to do. Story-wise, they do a great job of bringing her powers to the screen. Iceman, this is the best he's ever looked, as far as showcasing his powers go. There was somebody else I was thinking of. I'm trying to remember. Wolverine's great as always. Beast was really cool when they let him show off. There was one other one I was thinking of, and they did a great job with the mutants all around. And this, like I said, this more than any other one is the best of the X-Men movies because it really does do a fantastic job of showcasing what these mutants can do, what their powers are, and how powerful they really can be when they really cut loose. And they did a great job with that. Even showcasing powers. The way they got around to having the young Professor X talk to the old Professor X through mental powers and being able to use Wolverine as the bridge or whatever, that was a really cool scene. It was a great character moment, and it was also a great showcase for their powers as well. So, they did a great job realizing the mutants all around. And another big thing I wanted out of this movie was the Sentinels to be kick-ass, and they were. The future Sentinels with the Mystique powers that could adapt to every mutant's powers and were basically the perfect killing machines. They were awesome, and it led to a good action sequence at the beginning of the movie and a good climax at the end of the movie. And the past Sentinels that were under Magneto's control, they were good as well. So it was cool to see the Sentinels, which is really a classic part of X-Men storylines, realized as well as they were. And it was great. And I really liked the Sentinels, and it was really cool to see them really kick ass and do their thing. So that was, it's one of those X-Men bucket list things that you want to see in a movie, the Sentinels. And they were fully realized here, and it was great. So that was all awesome. So, yeah, it really, the story's really good, as I said, despite a couple of the little conveniences and the little holes here and there. I thought the story had great stakes. It was dark. It was... It was just great all around, and it really all paid off at the end, and it really felt like a big X-Men story. And the end, I'm sure some people thought the ending was cheesy, where Wolverine wakes up and everybody's alive, and Jean's alive, and that bitch Cyclops is alive. I don't like Cyclops. Nobody likes Cyclops. Cyclops doesn't even like Cyclops. He's a bitch. I feel like I'm back in first grade talking like that. But I liked it, because it's like, again, to compare it to Godzilla again, some people thought the ending of that movie was a little cheesy, but I liked it, because it's kind of like, oh, it's a happy ending, and my inner Frank Capra is pleased with a happy ending. It's like, and it did feel like we were saying goodbye to the old cast, because this is probably the last time you're going to get to see all of them together. So that was nice. And of course we got Kelsey Grammer doing a cameo as Fat Beast, which was nice. I mean, for all the shit that X-Men 3 gets, I did like Kelsey Grammer as Beast, so that was awesome. Yeah, it was a nice ending to the movie. I don't know how they're going to cover up that cliffhanger with Mystique taking control of, or I don't know what she did with Stryker, but it looks like Mystique is taking hold of Wolverine, and that was another thing I liked. How Wolverine taking a backseat. They pretty much removed him from the climax, which was good. And it allowed the other characters to really stretch their muscles and really complete their story arcs, which was fine and was great, and I liked it. So. X-Men Days of Future Past, it was very, very good. And of course, that post-credit scene, we're getting Apocalypse. We all knew that was coming, but it's great to have it confirmed on screen that we're getting Apocalypse. Although, I hope he doesn't look like that. I've heard that that's a young version of him that we saw in the post-credit sequence. I was like, okay, I hope he looks a little bit more imposing than that in the actual movie. But it'll be interesting to see, and it's nice to actually have an X-Men movie to look forward to, because a few years ago, I was just like, oh god, just let this franchise die. It's over. It's over. Let it be over. But now I'm like, oh god, I'm like reinvigorated again. And like I said, this is probably the most enjoyable X-Men movie, and this is probably the most X-Man-y X-Men movie. Don't you just love my extensive vocabulary? I'm never short of adjectives. Never, never. But it's the most X-Man-y X-Men movie so far, and I really enjoyed it. It was very good, and hooray for me, because of all the movies I was looking forward to in 2014, when I did my video in December last year, like, all right, the 5 movies I'm most looking forward to are the Muppet movie, Captain America, Godzilla, X-Men, and Maleficent, and we've had 4 of them come out, and I'm 4 for 4 so far. I mean, all 4 of them have been enjoyable. We had X-Men as the best X-Men movie to date. Godzilla was the movie I've wanted since I was 4 years old, and it made me extremely happy. Captain America, I think, is probably the best Marvel movie to date. Yes, probably better than the Avengers. And the Muppet movie is the weakest one of the 4, but it was good. It was a good, solid romp with the Muppets, and it pleased my inner Jim Henson fan, so that was fine. Maleficent comes out this weekend. I hope it's good, although I gotta be honest, the more I've seen of it, the more I'm like, oh, I don't know. I think I'm kind of losing my faith a little bit in that one, but I'm gonna see it, so let's see. Hopefully I'm 5 for 5, and I don't suffer a disappointment at the last movie, but X-Men Days of Future Past, I highly recommend it. I thought it was great. It was a very good X-Men movie, and if you're an X-Men fan, you're going to be happy with it. I don't know how you can't be. So go check it out. It was great.